Daredevil as a character in comics has undergone so many changes and reinventions over the years. Today, I'm continuing a 5-part series wherein I talk about 5 influential runs that all added to the character of Matt Murdock: Miller, Nocenti, Bendis, Brubaker, and Wade. These 5 authors will each receive an in-depth video detailing their runs and what each added to the character of Daredevil by trialing him and by expanding his worldview and viewpoints. This series will not be in publication order, but once it's complete, I'll create a playlist with said order for ease of understanding. Today, I'm going to be diving into Frank Miller's various stints on the Horn-Headed Hero. If you wish to read the storyline, beware, as there are a few spoilers, but I'll link the books in the description. Now, without further ado, let's begin. When writer-artist Frank Miller first joined the Daredevil title with issue 158 in May 1979, as an artist for writer Roger McKenzie. Miller would convene with McKenzie at various points to discuss the plots of the upcoming stories, until he was officially credited as a co-plotter in July 1980, with issue 165. McKenzie's authorship would then be passed on to David Michelini, a mere 2 issues later, for a one-shot story that Miller also drew. When it came time for issue 168 to hit shelves, however, it boasted Frank Miller's name as both artist and writer. Over the next 3 years, he would craft a Matt Murdock that would inspire many mainstays of the character to the modern age. But I believe Miller's run is more reflective of a very simple premise: love hurts. And while I won't mention him until later in the video, it should be noted that before Frank Miller, there was no arch rivalry between the Kingpin and Daredevil. So any great stories I talk about from here that feature Wilson Fisk originate from Frank Miller. But as I said, I want to discuss how Frank Miller's book is indicative of how painful love can be by breaking up the 3 eras of Miller's Daredevil with his Klaus Jensen run, Born Again, and The Man Without Fear. So let's get into it, starting with Klaus Jensen's run. When Miller first began writing Daredevil, he had inker Klaus Jensen join him, hence the reason the run is titled as it is. Miller's very first tale featured heartbreak and pain as a side effect of love from both sides. The introduction of Elektra showcased Matt's college days and his early days as a vigilante in service of saving Elektra. However, Matt fails to save her father, and Elektra leaves a broken-hearted Matt to train and kill the men who killed her father. The story closes by Matt recalling a move the pair used in combat in college, and it's at this moment Elektra's emotions surface after years of suppressing them as she cries. Miller then eases into his writing role by expanding the character of Foggy Nelson and his self-destructive tendencies as he fails to keep Nelson and Murdock from foreclosing, until he manages to wrangle a case that awards the duo more money at the sacrifice of the stability of his marriage. Miller uses Foggy again as the Kingpin puts a hit on him and uses Elektra as his top assassin. This mission is interrupted when Foggy recognizes her from college and she insists he leaves. It's at this moment that Bullseye attacks her and murders her with his weapon of choice, her size. Matt then takes the opportunity to cripple Bullseye during the next fight, and then becomes entrapped in his own entanglement of the heart. This entanglement occurs as his love for Elektra only revealed itself right before she died. A few weeks later, Matt proposes to his then-girlfriend Heather Glenn, and blackmails her into accepting before having a run-in with Tasha Romanov, aka the Black Widow, his ex-girlfriend. Foggy informs Natasha that Matt's recent behavior is out of line for his character and requests for her help in forging a note to both parties saying that they don't love the other, in order to save Heather's sanity. This story occurs right before Elektra is resurrected and flees New York City. This leads to Roulette, one of the best single issues in Daredevil's history, in where the titular character plays Russian roulette with the crippled Bullseye, forcing him to watch and believe he's going to die, while Matt laments his failures to him. The issue ends with Matt pointing the gun at Bullseye, seemingly about to kill him, while he thinks to himself, "When at long last I've got you set squarely in my sights, and I smell your fear, and it is sweet to smell. When it comes to that one final fatal act of ending you, my gun has no bullets." This is Matt Murdock without his fiancée, without his friends, without his law firm. He is clearly at his lowest point, or at least he was, until Born Again. The entire premise of Born Again, illustrated by David Mazzucchelli, revolves around Matt's first love, Karen Page, selling Matt's secret identity for drugs, giving a literal example of how letting someone into your life and revealing your secrets to them can come back to hurt you later in life. That letting somebody know you is a dangerous action for even the most good-hearted and trustworthy people. But Miller, in his magnum opus, also reveals love's greatest strength. After tearing Matt down over and over again throughout his run, and finally building to the Kingpin's total assault in getting Matt disbarred, cut off from his money, and leaving him homeless after blowing up his apartment building, Miller gives Matt his much-needed catharsis. After a broken, tired, and run-down Matt attempts to fight the Kingpin in a hand-to-hand fight, and is beaten nearly to death and left in a taxi at the bottom of the river. This is Matt's lowest point. He can't turn to Foggy or his recent ex Glory. He can't go home because he has no home to go to. He has nothing. Or so he thinks. Matt rests, and then declares to himself that if he's moving, he's alive. The issue then sees him hit by a car and stabbed by a thug until he reaches Fogwell's gym, a place frequented by both Matt and his father, something I'll get into later, and begins to punch a punching bag before passing out. This is where Maggie is introduced, and Matt gets a second chance at life. He spends the next issue stuck to a bed in a church basement fighting through his fever, and once he succeeds in doing this, he learns that Maggie is his mother. This incentivizes Matt to start striking at the Kingpin without desperation. He defends reporter Ben Urich, who published a story about Wilson Fisk's criminal activities, and then he rushes to protect Foggy and Karen, who's stolen and sold herself to get back to Matt, and completes the issue by forgiving Karen and embracing her. Matt connects with Karen and gets a job cooking in a diner within Hell's Kitchen and rebuilds his life. This forces Kingpin to attack Matt with one last-ditch effort, the supervillain Nuke. Nuke blows up Matt's new apartment, but Karen survives and gives Matt his costume back. For the first time since the beginning of the arc, Matt becomes Daredevil once again. Miller shows the strength of love in this moment, as Karen, the person who started the event, helps Matt become the hero of Hell's Kitchen once again. A scared and almost broken woman sparks Matt's return to Daredevil, just as a scared and broken woman sparked the initial rise of the hero in Miller's final stint on the character, the Man Without Fear. This miniseries, illustrated by John Romita Jr., was released in October 1993 and ran through until February 1994. This series served as Frank Miller's take on the hero's classic origin, which had never been given too much depth past the character's debut in 1964. This iteration focuses on how Matt's love for his father, Stick, and Elektra all teach him different lessons about pain and anger. At the beginning of the book, Matt is a secret troublemaker who engages in delinquent activities in a mask, while keeping up a public appearance as a notish bookworm. Or as a local policeman describes him, "Why can't you all learn to behave like the Murdoch boy? He's never in trouble, is he?" This creates a parallel between Matt and his father. By day, both are what the other needs. Matt is a studious and reserved child, while Battling Jack Murdoch is a prize fighter. However, Jack also works as a mob enforcer to protect himself and Matt from the mob. Both find they're constricted to one way of life or another. Matt can only be who he is within the mask, and Jack can only be who he is within the ring. Their paths collide when Matt defends himself from bullies and his father hits him for disobeying him. This is when Matt learns that even good people can do bad things, and therefore there requires rules and laws. Matt then refuses to fight back when kids at school fight him, and this causes Matt to find solace in the old abandoned Fogwell's gym, where, as a repeated quote from Born Again states, he steals hours away at the bag. This is when the accident that causes Matt's blindness occurs, and the boy meets Stick. Stick helps train Matt and teaches him how to own his senses to see the world around him. Both Jack Murdoch and Stick are trying to make Matt into better men, better than themselves. Jack wants to make sure that Matt doesn't become trapped in a life of mob enforcement like himself, and Stick believes Matt could be the Chase's secret weapon against the Hand. Both men fail in making Matt into their ideal version of what the boy could be, but ultimately end up creating the lawyer guise Matt will take in the public eye, and the masked vigilante known as Daredevil. But not before both men leave. Jack Murdoch refuses to throw a fight and is killed by the Fixer. Matt then systemically beats and causes the arrest of 4 men involved in the killing, chases the Fixer himself until he has a heart attack. And Matt then goes to attack the final man, Angelo, and ends up overwhelmed by the women in his employ. He thrashes and accidentally causes the death of one of these women. He then retreats and attempts to find Stick, only to discover he has abandoned Matt because of his emotional response to the murder of his father. Matt then goes to Harvard Law School, where he meets Foggy and, after a midnight chase across rooftops and Central Park, Elektra. Elektra toys with Matt in various manners until the two finally connect. The first true, emotional connection Matt allows himself to feel since the death of his father. Both of them are happy until Stick arrives and informs Matt of Elektra's inevitable turn to the Hand, and the death of her father, which reveals to her what she is, leaving Matt alone once more. Matt travels to Boston temporarily to escape New York, but is sent back only to find a young girl named Mickey in Fogwell's gym, who he decides to train to defend herself. But she is still kidnapped for a trafficking ring. This causes Matt to don an all-black outfit and rescue her, fighting a plethora of thugs on the way. This leads Matt to confront the leader of the ring, and he repeats a warning to him over and over again, like a mantra. I don't want to kill you, let her go. The man gets progressively more anxious until he fires the gun at Matt, who deflects it at the man's feet with the club. This is where the man finally asks, "Who the devil are you?" To which Matt replies, "Call me Daredevil." Matt begs with the man one final time, "Please, I'm begging you, I don't want to kill you, let her go." The man fires and Matt deflects once more, killing the man. Matt perches on a gargoyle as the first rumblings of his name are heard through the streets, and he smiles. The boy from Hell's Kitchen is home. The three greatest pains of his life. The pain born from love created the hero of Hell's Kitchen, Daredevil. The name that was once a taunt becomes a symbol to those who would cause harm to innocence. Matt closes the book, lamenting to himself, "The costume is probably a good idea. Sewed it myself. God only knows what it looks like." Frank Miller introduced a lot of elements that became mainstays attached to the Daredevil name. But in his time on the character, he also showed how painful love can be when those you love are lost. But he shows that there is another way to use the things those loves taught you to create something beautiful. Just because something ends doesn't mean its impact does. Matt Murdock takes this idea and forges a hero to protect the innocence of his home. Frank Miller wasn't the first writer to create the hardships of Matt Murdock, but he was the one to popularize how tragic the life of the Haunt hero truly was. But not only was he the first, Frank Miller wasn't anywhere close to the last in the ongoing saga of Matt Murdock. Thank you for watching this video. If you have anything to add, or if you wish to see anything else, please leave a comment below. And thank you once again.